Well, hey, Fusion Community Church. I know it's Tuesday, and one of the things that I mentioned on Sunday was posting, some more conversations about the topic of worship, and it was my goal to start yesterday, but I kind of felt convicted because, here we've been talking throughout this season about Sabbath and a rhythm of restoring our soul and withdrawing from the craziness and busyness and overwhelming of that, and I just kind of been running ragged, and so I'm just kind of confessing to you that I took yesterday as kind of a day of Sabbath. I had a couple of meetings, but other than that, really kind of did some stuff around the house. Oftentimes I sit in front of a computer screen and communicate and plan out stuff and organize things on a computer, but it's so good to move around and be active doing things, and so that just restores my soul. So kind of did that yesterday as kind of a part of worship. It just kind of unplugged from everything, pulled away from technology. I did not watch any of the live news broadcasts with the president or with the governor, and just kind of pulled away and detached yesterday into this morning. So today we'll kind of begin these discussions. Last night did have the opportunity to meet with my guys' Disciple Maker group on Monday nights, and it was just awesome. There were 4 of us on the call just sharing about how we're feeling, how our families are doing through all of this. And if you have not become a part of a Disciple Maker group, now is the perfect time. With technology, there's no inconvenience, just a matter of sitting down and we used Facebook video message, which was super easy to use. There's so much software out there we can help you with, but what an awesome opportunity. Just be real and be honest about what's going on in life with a group of people that share your same faith. So today, just some continued conversations about worship, and I want to start with telling you a story that may not be one that many are familiar with at all, about a woman named Florence Chadwick. Florence Chadwick. She was the first woman to swim the 21-mile distance between England and France, the English Channel, and she did that, and it was an impressive feat. In 1952, she wanted to kind of up it to another level and decided to swim from Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California to California. It's about 5 miles longer than the English Channel, and so she set her mind to do that in 1952. You can see it's a stunning island, absolutely gorgeous. Well, on the day when it came for her to start this swim, it got very foggy, and she couldn't see. After being in the water for about 15 hours, yes, 15 hours swimming, her mother, who was paddling a boat beside her as a safety net, she looked up at her mom and said to her mom, "I can't go any further. I think I'm done. I can't make it." Well, her mom tried to encourage her, knowing how much she'd put into this and how much she had worked, but the conditions and the fog. Eventually, after about another hour of swimming, she gave up. Florence gave up, and she got inside the boat. It was only a couple of minutes later, the fog lifted just enough that they could see the coastline only about a half mile away. So she really quit near the very end of the struggle. When asked later why she quit, Chadwick said, "It was because I couldn't see anything. If I could have just seen the coastline, I know I would have made it." It was a couple months later, she decided to get back in the water and do it again. And not only did she finish the swim from Catalina Island to California, swimming 26 miles, she did it in 13 hours and 47 minutes. And she broke the women's world record at the time for that swim. Get this, she broke it by 7 hours. The previous record was over 20 hours. She did it in 13 hours and 47 minutes. Interestingly, the second time she swam, it was even foggier than the first time. She couldn't see anything. The reporters asked her afterwards, and she said, "I was ready this time." And it's real simple. I kept a picture in my mind of the shoreline. Even though I couldn't see it with my eyes, it was ever before me. I never lost sight of the California shoreline. And so I felt like I was always closing in on it. And then get what she says here. As long as I lived for the picture in my mind, I could keep slogging through the fog of my challenge. Slogging through the fog of my challenge. Slogging. That's a great word. A word we should use more often. And it's a good word to kind of capture what's happening in our world right now. Slogging through. Every single day of our lives, we live in a fog of challenge. And the fog on most days gets the best of us. We get caught up in the stress, the busyness, the expectations, the work, the schedule, the activities, the routine. We're tired, we're running ragged, we're in the grind. We just keep going and going and going and pushing and pushing and pushing. And we know the pace that we're keeping is not good. Now we're at a time where that pace is kind of deflated. So much of the extracurricular activities that we do are not an option now. But when life is normal, we feel trapped. It feels as if we're stuck in a fog, just swimming and swimming and swimming and treading water, not knowing when we're going to dip under the water and dip under again and maybe even drown. So because of our fear in the fog, oftentimes we're looking for a boat nearby that we can reach up and grab and ask to get in. And this is exactly how we let circumstances in our lives, conditions around us, steal our worship and our faith from us. The fog, the water, not being able to see what's really going on in our world, not knowing what God is allowing, not knowing what God is thinking, not knowing where God is, not knowing what God's decision for tomorrow is. We start to lose sight of our dad. We start to lose sight of his will and his plan and his promises and his word. And so we look for any boat nearby that we can reach up and grab onto and get out of the water. You know, God's already promised victory. He's already offered Jesus to set us free. It's done. It's finished. God's assured us that we have strength and power, all that we need. In fact, the verses we're reading today says his incomparably great power to finish the swim all the way to the end. And yet all of us continue to let boats of temptation paddle beside us while we're swimming through life. Boats that we let hang around to tempt us to lose faith that if God does fail us, we can reach up and we can cope in another way with something of this world we can hang on to. And we lose faith in who God is and what Jesus can do. It could be one of 1,000 things that you really rely on to cope with your circumstances, rather than worship God and trust him in the middle of the struggle, slogging through. The boat can be a device, a substance, an action that maybe is how you manage stress, to simply try and forget the pressure that is pushing down on top of you for at least a little while, to escape it for a time. So maybe your boat in the fog that you let paddle next to you as you're swimming is to just pick up your phone and get lost in social media. Maybe your boat in the fog is to pick up the remote and just kind of get lost in mindless entertainment on the screen. Maybe your boat in the fog is to, crack open a bottle or a can. Maybe your boat in the fog is to survive long enough to just get that glass of wine. Maybe your boat in the fog is to start browsing websites with content that you'd be ashamed if people knew that you were entertaining. Maybe your boat in the fog is to open up the freezer looking for ice cream or open the cabinets for something else. Maybe your boat in the fog is something else entirely. The point is, God's already told us the power of worship and putting him first, that without singing a song, without singing a single note, worshiping him, putting him first can change everything. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. We need to learn to hold the image of who God is in every part of our being, heart, soul, mind, and strength, so that when we get maxed out by circumstances, the fog, the heavy water, slogging it out in deep water, we're prepared with a rhythm that we've set in our lives of refocusing our heart, refocusing our mind, refocusing our physical bodies and strength, our spirit on who our Heavenly Dad is, how he feels about us, and the lengths he went to prove it, offering his life for us. The Apostle Paul gives us a hint at how he's uncovered this rhythm in his life, and he prays it for the church. He prays it for us in the verses we're reading through Ephesians 1 today. He says, I pray the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, us, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. That power is the same as the mighty strength he exerted when he raised Christ from the dead. Remember, we talked Sunday about what worship is, our loyalty and passion, chasing the objects we believe to be the greatest and most worthy in all of life. And remember today that holding the image of your dad in your mind, heart, soul, and strength, it revolutionizes everything. There's so much power available to each of us to keep swimming, slogging through the fog of our challenge when we're centered and focused on worshiping the Holy Spirit for who he is, what he can do, and how much we mean to him. Look forward to sharing more with you tomorrow. Have a great rest of Tuesday.